The Miami Dolphins plan to meet with one of the top safety prospects in the draft and someone we've talked about on this channel for months and months. We'll dive into that. Also, are the Dolphins quietly eyeing another speedy back in the 2025 NFL draft? We're going to talk about that because there might be some fire to that smoke. Also, we will discuss the debate online about if the Dolphins should trade up for Shedeur Sanders. I don't even know why this is a debate. No. And we'll also talk about Mel Kiper's latest mock and how it makes a ton of sense. Plus, a whole lot more. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. And as always, let's get into this one.
Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it!
You have got to be kidding me.
Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score!
Field down the near side, man open, touchdown!
The run from Tua Tagovailoa.
Touchdown!
He's going deep. It's not over the touchdown again.
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go! What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we are back here for another one. Appreciate all of you coming through for today's video on this beautiful Tuesday, wherever you are. I know up here, the sun is shining, the birds are chirping. It is a beautiful, beautiful day up where I'm at, and I hope you guys are enjoying some great weather wherever you are at on this planet right now. I appreciate you for taking the time out to come and check me out and check the channel out. Thank you so very much. All right, we got a couple things to talk about, that's for sure. Now, before we get into all of this, though, I do got some things I want to go over here. Now, shout out to each and every one of you in the chat once more. Over 100 of you in the chat. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new. We are on the road to 20K. We are under 3K away. And I got a big giveaway planned for about 5 of you lucky members when we do the draw. So make sure if you're new, subscribe so you can be a part of that, because you will have to be subscribed to the channel to be a part of that giveaway when it goes down. But let's talk about some things. Number one, yesterday I talked about Tyler Booker, why I didn't think he was a scheme fit, why it just doesn't make sense to me. And I know, first of all, I saw some posts on Twitter. I had people in the chat wanting, just to understand my reasoning a little bit more. And like, let me just show you an example of what I'm talking about, of why I do not think Tyler Booker is a scheme fit for what we want to do. Now, what I've talked about is his lack of foot speed, his lack of, movement ability in space or pulling, et cetera, et cetera. Like, this is more, I want people to understand something right here. This is, there's, listen, now I understand being in this scheme, there is a ton more to being in this scheme than just pulling, et cetera, right? Now, I understand, you got to win your leverage battles at the point of attack, You got to take, proper angles. You have to your high IQ can show with how you take those angles or how you approach, taking on a blocker or moving to the second level, et cetera, et cetera. His IQ, Tyler Booker's football IQ is not in question, and it never has been in question. He's definitely one of the smartest linemen in this draft. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You will not hear anyone take that away from him. But I'm going to show you something right now. And I want you to watch what I'm about to show you. And I want you to ask yourself, would this work in our system with the speedy the speed we have coming out of the backfield or the speed we have on screens? Would this work for you? I want you to know, because you're going to see right now. And when you see this, you're going to see, clumsy. I don't want to say clumsy, but lumbering. Heavy feet. Lumbering heavy feet. Lumbering heavy mover. And this would be a problem. A la like how we saw Solomon Kinley. Now, obviously, Tyler Booker's a much, much better prospect than Solomon Kinley. But I'm talking about those lumbering, stiff, heavy feet and movement ability. Watch what I'm about to show you. He's at left guard. I need in there. Watch him. Look at this. This man can't even get to the edge. Look at this. You want that? One more time. We'll roll it back for you guys. This does not work. Look at this. And this man is chugging along. Look at this. It just doesn't work, bro. One more time. Just a third time's the charm. Yes, this does not work. Look at this. 1, 2, 3 men. You got 2 trailers. Look at this. 4 bodies get to the quarterback running out there. Why? Right? He can't get his hands on anybody. Defenders in front of him are taking angles to avoid him and yet stay in the path and the lane that the runner is taking. And then you got 2 guys in pursuit and no one can, you just can't. So I don't know what people are talking about when they're out here sitting here saying they would take that at 13. I'm sorry, no. No, I'm not. If we were a power gap team, yes, let's go. I'm all for it. But we are not. I'm telling you. Like, that is 0 range right there on that. So, I'm sorry. I can't take that at 13. I just can't. I just can't. Like George says, that dude is strictly built for inside the box. Yeah, listen. Now, he can take a great angle and he shows his high IQ he can take a good angle and get to the second level, but even reaching to the second level, he better take a good angle, because if he don't, it's over. Right? I mean, we're talking about, guys, that's college. Now we're getting to the NFL with the best athletes that play the game in the world. Have we seen how linebackers, interior defensive linemen, and edge players move nowadays? This isn't 1980, 1990s, okay? This is 2025. That's an issue. Bro, I'm going to tell you this right now. Butch Barry, Mike McDaniel, the whole crew, they're going to go over the tape. They're going to come to that play and they're going to say, oof. I'm telling you, this is why I'm telling you. I said yesterday, Tyler Booker is a better player than Jonas Savaiinaea. I mean, the gap isn't like Grand Canyon, but he's a better player. But Jonas Savaiinaea offers you tackle and guard flexibility. He has much better movement skills. He has that nasty side. Yeah, I got him ranked 1 spot higher, Tyler Booker, than Jonas Savaiinaea on my guard board that you guys are going to see next after I drop my defensive tackle board this week, which, by the way, is probably going to come. I'm thinking Saturday. If it comes earlier, it's going to come earlier, but I'm thinking Saturday. So y'all are going to see my big board. Yeah, I got Tyler Booker rated 1 spot higher than Jonas Savaiinaea, if I remember correctly. I don't have it open in front of me, but I'm pretty sure it's 1 spot. But guess what? I would still take Jonas Savaiinaea given the traits, the skill set, and the flexibility from guard to tackle. It's another reason why I'd take Donovan Jackson over Tyler Booker with what we want to do. I just would. So, yeah. Listen, I like the kid. You wanna go to a power gap team? This kid goes to Baltimore, look out. Right? This guy goes to Baltimore and he's moving people. you know, because here's the thing. No, people will say, well, look at Aaron Banks' profile. Yeah, okay, he worked in the Shanahan system. Great. But does that we have something that Shanahan system doesn't have, and we've known this since our offense was instituted in Miami by Mike McDaniel. They don't have the speed element we have. Like that's a fact. They don't have the speed element. That's why they've been trying to catch up to that. And McDaniel, McVay, and LaFleur, they were all in awe of the speed element. Look at the Packers. What speed element do they have? They have zero speed element. Yeah, you can go to Green Bay. That'll work. You hand that ball off to Achane, he's going to be, look, God forbid, you got to go off the right tackle's hip, and Tyler Booker has to pull to that side. Buddy, Tyler Booker won't even be past the center, and Achane will already be 7 yards upfield. Or that end, it'll be deaded, right? There'll be free defenders coming because he's too slow coming across, and Achane's too fast. So what are we talking about here? Great. He's super talented, but he's not a ideal fit for what we want to do. That's just it. I don't know what else to tell you. So I know we've had people say, hey, take Tyler Booker at 13. God, no. God, no. Please, no. I'm sorry. Not going down. Listen, I'd take it. You'd even consider, I'd take Tate Ratledge over this. I mean, maybe on the haircut alone, but in all seriousness, the testing, the film, the traits, he makes more sense in this scheme than a guy like Tyler Booker does. End of story. So, I don't know, man. People just need to watch the film, man. Not highlight reels on YouTube. That's the problem when you get caught up in highlight reels on YouTube. You think they're going to throw that play in it? Listen, I'm going to do my guard big board. You think I'm going to throw that play in the guard big board? No, I'm going to show you guys like impressive plays by the player. I'm not going to show you, unless I'm doing now, if we drafted him and I had to do a prospect profile like I've done for other prospects, yes, then I will show you some of the negative if it's glaring like that. Right? I talked about Liam Eichenberg when he took him about how much he was lunging, right? And how much he was whiffing on blocks. I talked about that. And how big he needed to clean that up when I did his prospect profile. So if I was doing a specific prospect profile on a player we drafted, then yes, I would show you that. But on my guard big board, I'm not going to show you that. I've only got like what? A minute and a half, 2.5 minutes of film space to show you guys a player, right? So I'm going to show you the things the player does well. But I want people to know this, right? So again, Tyler Booker is going to be dominant in a power gap. You put him on the Ravens, that guy's going to be freaking dominant. And he will be considered one of the best guards in football. This is why, shout out to EM Dolphin fan, day one, baby. Scheme fits matter. Anyone who's been around since day one, they know what's up there, man. So, shout out. Throwing it back, baby. Throwing it back. Hey, all of you college football fans. College football 26. The players with their nil deal last year, they got about $600 a piece. This year, they're getting $1,500 each. College football, EA. Oh, man, I love it. Man, I'm going to be honest with you. Last year was the first year I didn't buy Madden in... Man, over 20 years. That was the first year I didn't buy Madden. Over 20 years. Easy. And yeah, I didn't buy it last year, mainly because college football was made for next-gen consoles. So I was like, I'll buy Madden next year when it's made for next-gen consoles and none of this, PS4 stuff, So, yeah, but, man, I still play it. College football, unbelievable game. Unbelievable. If you haven't had a chance to play, you could probably get it for cheap on whatever you play on. Go play that game. It was unbelievable last year. Loved it. Loved it. So, yeah, I can't wait for 2026. And that nil deal shows just how well this is doing. So, love it. What else? Tet McMillan. Now, I know, like, man, I think Tet McMillan, I think there's a couple players in this draft that, they're getting draft exhaustion. They're being overthought. They're being overthunk. I think there's a couple of this class. I think Tet McMillan is one of those. He's becoming one of those. I think Will Campbell became one. We all knew the arms were short, right? We weren't expecting great length, but you watch the film, and man, I don't know how you can't at least see what this guy's got at tackle. Malachi Starks. Listen, I love Nick Emmanwori, but remember, my whole idea was trading up from 48 or hoping Emmanwori falls to 48. Because I'm going to tell you this right now. I've said this before. Malachi's the better football player right now. That's why you saw him do so well in the drills at the combine. I mean, look at the percentiles. He was in like 96, 97th percentiles with how he was moving in the drills. So when you see how he was moving in the drills compared to how you tested, what does that tell you? What you see on film, he moves better on field in action than what he does testing, right? That's why sometimes, listen, you're looking for testing to back up what you see on the field. And then when testing doesn't back up, whether it be good or negatively, what you saw, you now go back to the film and you reassess, blah, 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 blah. And I think that's what the big thing with Malachi was. So I just think he's a football player, man. I think he's a legitimate football player. So now personally, I've already told all of you this. I think it's Kenneth Grant, Will Johnson, or Will Campbell, Membo, or Kelvin Banks. I feel like those three tiers, I feel like that's what they're eyeing at 13. I do think safety does fall behind those, but I mean, you look at what they moved. If they can keep Malafanu and Davis healthy this year, then they potentially got something really, they're cooking with something, and it puts them in a position with McMorris in-house. And I know the scouting department was really high on McMorris. The scouting department really pushed McMorris in the draft last year. And then on top of that, they brought back Elijah Campbell, who they're really happy with. And McMorris had that really good preseason. I think they want to continue to see what they have in that. So I don't think, I'm going to tell you this much. I think it's more likely they draft a Makuba at 48 or someone maybe an Xavier Watts. I think Makuba would be the one ahead of Xavier Watts. At least I would hope, because he's my safety 3 behind Emmanwori and Starks. I think Makuba at 48 would probably happen, and seems a lot more likely than Emmanwori at Starks at 13. Now, if Johnson is gone, if Membo and Campbell and Grant are all gone, and I keep saying Grant because I don't think people realize NFL teams came away from the combine. There were some NFL teams I've heard that they got Grant higher than Mason Graham. Now, I think Mason Graham is another one who's taking a little bit of draft exhaustion and he's falling down people's boards. So, there's guys who get lifted up by the process, rightfully so. And there's some that, don't. And then there's some that get knocked down through the process, rightfully so. And there's some that don't. I'm going to be honest with you. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later, the Shedeur thing. I do think he should get knocked down in the process. I also want to shout out, listen, 2-year deal worth up to $12 million, only $3.8 million guaranteed for Garrett Bradbury to the New England Patriots. Man, this team must love Andrew Meyer. This team must really love what they have in Andrew Meyer. They really must. Because, and listen, I said, what's crazy is when I did my film breakdown heading into the regular season last year, showing everyone that Robert Jones and Liam Eichenberg were a serious issue and were not NFL caliber starters, which that ended up being right. You know, when I showed all that, I did highlight Andrew Meyer in some of that, because Andrew Meyer, I said, Andrew Meyer looks like he has more potential than either one of these guys. He looks more intriguing. You saw him settling it in. You saw him getting comfortable. You saw him showing a decent anchor. Like, you saw him, the hands, you know, they weren't wild. They weren't wide. They were nice, tight. You know, you saw upside in Andrew Meyer. And I was saying this, man. I said, man, I would try seeing what he's got at guard. And if it don't work, okay, keep him at center. But I was saying he looked better than Eichenberg and Robert Jones in the preseason. So, hey, maybe they're high on him. But, you know, I got to give the devil their due. That's a good move for the Patriots. That's a solid move for the Patriots. That is a solid move for the Patriots. So, got to give a devil their due on that one. I really do. So, yeah, I like Patriots did a good job, but hey, man, they must be really high on Andrew Meyer. So, you know, man, at this point, I'd see what he has at left guard. Jeez, he'd probably beat out Borum or Eichenberg. You know, so we'll see. All right, let's get into this. I got some stuff we want to go over here. Now, let's start off with the news from today. The Miami Dolphins, South Carolina safety Nick Emmanwori will travel to Flowery Branch to meet with the Falcons in the coming week or two, he said Tuesday. He is also visiting the Panthers, the Seahawks, the Bengals, and the Dolphins. Now, I mean, for any of you who were under a rock and didn't see the combine, Nick Emmanwori tested like an absolutely, I mean, you're talking, I think he ended up having the second best RAS ever at safety. I know it was originally predicted to be number one, but I think it ended up being number two. But, I mean, you know, I think this is a guy who, yeah, his trigger can be a little bit late at times, but man, you look at that athleticism, you do see the instincts getting better and better. You have seen the growth. I mean, man, the recovery speed, you know what I mean? Like, good route recognition with how he understands routes and knows where to break on them. You know, and this guy offers you, he can play on the perch, obviously, with that athleticism. And he offers you, he offers you a box defender type of versatility role too. And you just love how he gets after the pigskin. You know, there's some ball hawking to Nick Emmanwori's game. You know, I think he's a smart player. I think he's one of those guys where you see the football IQ with the angles he takes. You know what I mean? I just think he's a really good, I think he's a really good football player. I think there's room to grow. Now, let me be very clear about that. I think, again, I go back to, he sometimes can get caught having a late trigger. You know, because I think he really needs to improve against the run, especially if he wants to play in the box a little bit more. So, you know, and another thing, you know, one too many times I did see him, you know, get beat because he lost his balance. He needs to get better at that. So, you know, I do think you look at the athleticism, you look at the tape, man, that's an intriguing prospect. And when you have a coach like Anthony Weaver in your room, man, I mean, you look at what Baltimore did with Kyle Hamilton, and then you think, and you look at what Weaver did last year with young kids he could mold, like Chop Robinson. man, that could be a scary thing. Again, I know I said it last year because I was afraid of it, but now I'm like on 99.9% sure it'll happen next year. It just sucks that we only have like one more year of Anthony Weaver. If you are drafting young defensive studs and Weaver was here for 2 or 3 more years at least, minimum, man, I would be so excited about the upside, but I don't know what the plan is after, Weaver gets a head coaching job. Now, for all I know, things could go sideways in the first 6 or 8 weeks like it did last year, and Weaver's the interim coach by midseason. I don't know. But I'm just saying, man, like, that's what makes him more intriguing to me than it should for other teams who don't have defensive minds in their room that develop young talent at the rate this guy does. That's what I would say. So, yeah. Now, again, I go back to what I said earlier. I do think 13 is a little rich for Emmanwori. That's why when you go back to what I've been saying the last, before the combine, right? Remember all January, what was I saying? January, December. I was saying, man, the ideal. Remember, I was talking about Will Johnson slipping to us like months and months and months ago. And remember what I would pitch? I would say, imagine if Will Johnson fell to us at 13 and then you traded up from 48 and you got Nick Emmanwori. And oh my God, like, think about our secondary. That's what I was saying, like in December, January, maybe even November. I've been saying it for a while. Now, and then after the combine, first show I did with Neil, I said, well, literally, I said, that dream is dead because he's not going to be around till 48, and you're probably not going to be able to trade up for him because it's going to be way too rich because you're probably going to have to move up at least 23 spots, and that's going to be rich. So, but I don't know. I think, and we'll talk about it with the possibility later. We'll talk about it with the possibility of 3 quarterbacks going in the top 10 and pushing talent to you. I think that's too rich. I'm going to be honest with you. Now, if this ends up being 2022 where you don't have a quarterback selected till the 20s a la Kenny Pickett and the Pittsburgh Steelers, okay, for a draft that only has about 15-ish first round grades for the majority of people who, do grades and like myself or, Neil or even people in major publications, it's around 15-ish, give or take a few, whether that's 13 to 17. But, you're not going to find a lot of draft analysts with 20 plus first round grades in this class. And if you do, let me know because I want to see that list. But, so if Cam Ward's the only one that goes, and then you have, 12 of those 15-ish first round guys go, then it gets, who's left? If Dashton Jeanty's one of them, I'd trade back. So like, and if he's the BPA, I'd trade back a little bit. So, and I've said this, if that board doesn't fall your way and, Travis Hunter's obviously off the board and you're talking about like Tet McMillan, Ashton Jeanty, like these are the best guys available. And sorry, I know they might want him, but even if Kelvin Banks is one of the best players available, I would entertain a trade back. Now, if Will Johnson, Kenneth Grant, Armand Membo, who probably won't be there, or Will Johnson are on the board, or if Mason Graham slips somehow, okay, then yeah, I'm not moving back. I'm staying put and I'm taking whatever one of those players that is left that I just named. Even if, if you start getting into Malachi Starks is a BPA, I would entertain trade backs. We need more picks between 48 and 98. unless, and listen, I consider Kenneth Grant a blue chip prospect. Unless you are a blue chip prospect, no, I'm good. Seriously, I'm good. I really am. Like, trade back. Even if that sends you to 18 or 19, like, 5 or 6 spots back, but it lands you a pick between 48 and 98, I'm all for it. So, I mean, that's where I'm at with the whole Nick Emmanwori safety thing at 13. I think Grant, Will Johnson, Membo, or Will Campbell, either one of those guys, you can run up to the podium and we should all be happy. Malachi Starks, Nick Emmanwori, now you start getting into splits because you're going to have people, legitimate people who understand the draft, questioning the value of where that went. You can't just look at the need, especially now that if Melifonwu and Ashton Davis somehow manage to stay healthy. Now, should either one of those guys prevent you from taking Malachi Starks or Nick Emmanwori? No, but again, if you haven't gained it by listening to me for, the 5+ years I've been here, I'm a, blue chip and draft value guy. So, it's got to be value. So, man, we'll see how it goes, but and that's why I think, you've seen mocks. Jalen Walker's going in the top 10. If someone like that slips to 13, they're going to be all over it. They're going to be all over it. A guy who can play linebacker and offer you edge rushing, passing ability on pass rush situations, they'll be all over that. Boom, you can pretty much lock that one up. Again, what am I talking about? A la like a Mason Graham, if one of those blue chip players falls. So, anyways, let's keep it going with the draft because no one's reported this, and I found it interesting. I do think 13's a little rich for Jahad Campbell. I'm going to be honest with you. The last Mike who went in the top 15 was Roquan. And I don't think Jahad is quite Roquan. I think Jahad's good. I think he's really good. I think he's LB1. I do, if you want to trade back to the early 20s and take him, let's go. But I think unless you're generational, it's kind of like tight end for me with interior, with off-ball interior linebackers. Listen, if you got to be generational to go in the top 15 for me. Kind of the same thing, or at least have the, generational type of outlook like I had for Bowers last year, etc. I do the same thing with tight ends, with linebackers. I said this before. So I think Jahad's going to be a great player, though. But I do think I think you could still trade back and get him. Now, some interesting stuff here from the Michigan State Pro Day that happened just a few days ago. All right, we're going to go over it right here. Could the Miami Dolphins be wanting to draft another speedy running back this year? Let's talk about it. For the first time in a while, and this is insider notes on Michigan State Pro Day from Tony Pauline. For the first time in a while, the Spartans had no players at the Combine, and Pro Day was the only opportunity for the team's prospects to showcase their skills to scouts. 2 significant Combine snubs were included in Wednesday's group. They talk about Luke Newman here, the offensive lineman, but here's where it's interesting to us. Running back Nate Carter had a tremendous day. He measured 5'9", 200 pounds, and then clocked 4.37 seconds in the 40 twice. His other marks included 40 inches in the vertical, a 10-foot 8-inch in the broad jump, and 23 reps in the bench. Carter looked good in the drills, especially catching the ball. That's what teams wanted to see. Look at this. As Carter only had 18 receptions last season, the Miami Dolphins ran the pass catching drills and have shown a lot of interest in Carter, as have the Rams and Arizona Cardinals. Carter is the highest rated non-combine running back on Tony Pauline's board with a 6th round grade. I mean, I think we can all put ourselves in Mike McDaniel's shoes, and if this guy just saw, I mean, we know what he is, what he loves. If this guy just saw 5'9", 200-pound back run 4.37 twice in a row, I pretty much know that this guy loves him. Now, I've watched a little bit of Nate Carter, not a ton. I am not an expert on Nate Carter by any stretch of the imagination, because he's one of the deeper sleepers in this draft. I actually saw this a couple days ago. Noticed no one had mentioned it, so I decided to tie it into the Nick Emmanwori. But when I saw this, I watched a little bit on him. I can see what intrigues them. I really can. Especially, I mean, I looked at him as a day 3 back. And, I 110% agree. Now, I think he's going to go higher than the 6th. I think he's probably going to go in the, 5th. And I think he's got 4th round potential for sure. I mean, he was a good runner. He played well in snow. I mean, he's just, and what's really impressive to me about him was his vision and his patience. I mean, this guy would just, let his O-line do the work and boom, burst right through the hole. And man, and he saw it, I don't know, man. I think people are going to see the vision on tape. And I think this is a player where NFL teams are higher on him and not a lot of people are talking about him. I mean, we're talking about he got cutting ability. I mean, he looks like I told you what really stood out to me was his vision. And he could play through contact like it's no one's business. I was really impressed, actually, with what I saw. Yeah, man. And he can make himself skinny, fit through those holes. Man. Yeah, I think he's going to be I think he's a good sleeper. So I hadn't really watched him until I saw this. And then I saw this and I watched a bit of him. And I was like, oh, snap diggity. Okay, I see the intrigue. So I think if you want a player to watch, go check him out. If you like running backs, if you like offensive players, go check him out. I think you'll be interested in that one. That's a good one. It's kind of, like, hey, I love Bashil Tootin. Now I think he'll be gone, by the 3rd or 4th. So I don't think we'll have it. I don't think they'll even be thinking about that. But man, he would be super crazy dynamic in this class too, man. If he if he comes to the league and, he protects the football better than he did in college, Bashil Tootin may be a guy we're talking about in a couple of years as one of the best backs in ball. 300 Egos says, Chris Greer, in my opinion, can really draft good players from the draft, but I have no confidence he can build a team. I don't understand the lack of awareness for building the trenches on this team. I agree. I think some of it, I think there's a multitude of things. I think Eichenberg has been a stubbornness to just admit his failure in the trade up and everything it is. And I've talked about this. Like, you want to talk about the trenches, 300 Eagles? I've been talking about this for over a week now. What's going on right now philosophically in that front office? It doesn't make any sense. You look at the athletic profile guys like Taron Armstead, Aaron Brewer, Connor Williams, James Daniels, and then you look at Liam Eichenberg, Patrick Paul, et cetera. They don't fit. And it's just clashing. It's clashing of styles, and it's led to sacks, negative plays, blown up plays, penalties, just much more negative than positive, but they continue to run the cycle back. And it's like, why can't we just get 5 guys as the starters with those ideal athletic profiles instead of always having to fit at least one square peg into a round hole? It makes no sense. It's absolutely mind-boggling, and I don't get it. I don't get it, man. It makes no sense. I don't know, man. It's just, I told you, it's multiple things. Either it's just a guy who's stubborn and won't admit he doesn't know what he's got to let the coaching staff dictate to the scouting department and go from there. Or there's people, I've said this before, and it goes back to Liam Eichenberg last year, whoever said, hey, we can fit him in for Robert Hunt and make it through. And whoever said Robert Jones is starting left guard. Whoever is enabling this, like whether it's Frank Smith or Butch Barry saying to Mike McDaniel, yeah, Mike, we can get it done. Don't worry, we can make it work with those guys. And then Mike relaying that message to Chris Grier and making Chris Grier feel comfortable. Whatever the cases may be, whoever's relaying needs to, I don't trust you. I'm telling you right now, you're not good at your job. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I just don't get it. It makes no sense. It just makes no sense. Going out and signing James Daniels as your biggest move of free agency, and then leaving that void at left guard and leaving it at a competition between Larry Borom and Liam Eichenberg is nuts. Heading into the draft. Like, it's just nuts. Like, I don't know. And you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of last year. And it reminds me of what they were doing at right guard with Liam Eichenberg and Jack Driscoll all over again. That's exactly what it reminds me of. This Larry Borom and Liam Eichenberg thing at left guard with a void, us hoping they're going to fill it, reminds me of Jack Driscoll and Liam Eichenberg last year. And how did that work out for us? How did that work out for us? Just saying, you had to sign James Daniels. So, like, it's the same ish, it's just a different pile. That's all it really is right now. Now, I don't really usually go over mock drafts on this channel, but something I've been talking about, right, for weeks and weeks and weeks now is what I just said earlier, that to me, it seems like Will Johnson or Kenneth Grant are the apples of their eye at 13, and then Membo or Will Campbell, if they're on the board, one of those two or both are on the board at 13, which is not going to be likely. You'd be lucky to get one on the board at 13. Those are the two I think could be a potential. Those are the three options at 13. I've been saying this for weeks and weeks and weeks. That, it's Grant, Will Johnson, or one of those offensive linemen at 13 in this draft. That's where I feel it stands right now. All right. And Mel Kiper, he came out with his mock draft today. And look at my boy, Jackson Dart. I'm also showing this because, my boy's in this. So you got Cam Ward going number 1, makes sense. Abdul Carter going to 2 at Cleveland. So then why did you sign Myles Garrett when you could have got all these picks, not screwed up the market for everyone, and just got Abdul? That's literally what I said to do. Unbelievable if that happens. Shedeur Sanders at 3. Good luck, New York. Travis Hunter at 4. Mason Graham at 5. Ashton Jeanty at 6. Tyler Warren at 7 to the Jets. Oh my God, I love it. Jalen Walker, who I've told you guys, that's someone I know they love. And if he's on the board at 13, oh boy. Jackson Dart going 9 to New Orleans. I'm not going to read it, but I did read it earlier. Mel Kiper is basically saying, hey, look at all the first round talent getting in that division. I saw him actually speak about it in terms of quarterbacks. They've got to keep up with it. This is Kellen Moore gets, man, I've already told you all this. To me, Jackson Dart is QB2. All right. Michael Williams at 10. Armand Membo falls all the way to 11. Cowboys take Marion Hampton, and Will Campbell goes number 13 to the Miami Dolphins. And this is what he says. He says, left tackle Terron Armstead will be 34 if he returns for the 2025 season, but that's a big if. He's mulling retirement, and the Dolphins are operating as if he won't be back. So Considering the concussion and injury history of quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, Miami should be focused on finding Armstead's heir apparent. Plus, this team ranked 28th in pass block win rate last season at 55.7%, so it needs upgrading anyways. Yes, Campbell's arm length comes into question. He measured 32 and 5/8 inches at the combine, which isn't ideal for an offensive tackle in the NFL, but plenty of tackles start their careers at guard, and Campbell's great footwork points to a successful career despite the length limitations. So, I'm going to tell you this much. I would be on board. That's a home run pick. If Will Campbell's there at 13, if you could get Membo, Campbell, Johnson, or Grant, that's a home run pick. Okay? That's a home run pick. I've told you they love Mykel Williams and Jalen Walker. If one of those guys slips at 13, I've just told you they love him. That's not where I would go, but that's where they would go. So now, notice he has Shedeur Stewart on the board. I think that would intrigue them as well. 110%. Also for note, Mel Kiper does have Nick Emmanwori as the number 1 safety off the board. He has Jahad Campbell going 19 to Tampa. All right. The second receiver doesn't go till 20, and it's Ted McMillan to Denver. He's got Colston Loveland going right after us to Indianapolis, which makes a ton of sense. He's got Jahdae Barron dropping to the mid-20s. A guy who I really like, and I thought we'd have a shot at him at 48, but he's got him going 26 to the Rams. Azariah Thomas from Florida State. Man, maybe people are sleeping on Trey Amos. Malachi Starks goes to the Ravens in this scenario, which is crazy. Kenneth Grant goes to the Buffalo Bills at 30. Trust me, you don't want to see that. Kelvin Banks goes at 31 to the Kansas City Chiefs. The last pick of the draft was Walter Nolan. So it's interesting to see how that does work out, man. I'm telling you. If Grant's sticking around in the 20s, I'm trading up to get Grant. If I could get Will Johnson and somehow get back into the 20s and get Kenneth Grant, are you crazy? So I would take Kenneth Grant over Shedeur Stewart from Texas A&M. So I'm really, really high on Kenneth Grant. So, I just see what he has in his game, and he's a good player, man. He's going to be really good. He is going to be really good. Scotty Joe, member here for quite some time. He is a big fan of I'm gonna be honest with you. When it comes to Lott, I have him as a top 10 player. And he's talking about Omar Norman Lott from Tennessee. He's a top 10 player. You'll be seeing my big board coming out this class. You know what's crazy? The lowest grade on my top 15 players and on my big board, okay, is the only one, has a 5th round grade. Everyone else, the top 14 players on my big board are 4th round grades at worst. It's crazy. It's a crazy class. It's a good class. Man, it's a good class. So, yeah. I like Omar Norman Lott. He's good. He's good. Good player. So, but, listen. Will Campbell, sign me up. I'm telling you, man. That is like Quentin Nelson levels. Now, will he be as good as Quentin Nelson? I don't know. But, man, you watch that guy's film. And tell me you wouldn't try him at left tackle if Armstead goes down before Patrick Paul. I'm sorry. He blows Patrick Paul out of the water. It's not even going to be close. So, but, man, listen, Will Johnson, I think, went on his mock 16. Man, that's a guy who's getting overthought too. Look at Will Johnson's film. Are you crazy? The fact that this guy is slipping outside the top 15 is nuts to me. And I'm telling you, your boy Chris Greer is doing the Birdman hand rub. Given our needs, Oh, they're hoping this slide just happens. They're just hoping this slide happens. Like, like, why are you going to rush? Now, I don't want Jahdae Barron, but, well, I would be okay with Jahdae Barron in the 20s. I'm down for Jahdae Barron in the 20s. There's a couple guys I'd be down for. But, I mean, I'd be down for Trey Amos at 48. I think people are sleeping on that man heavy. So, but there's options on the board here, man, at corner for this team between 13 and 48. And that's why I don't think they're stressing. So, but hey, we'll see. I mean, you're in a scenario where you get I'll change Emmanwori out because he's going too high now. I mean, you could get Will Johnson at 13 and Makuba at 48. All of a sudden, that secondary is a little nasty, huh? Just saying. And hey, I didn't like Brandon Jones. You got more than I thought you would get out of Brandon Jones. And Makuba's the better Texas safety. So, we'll see. We'll see. Now, let's talk about this. This has been a discussion. Joe Shad's been just getting raked over the fire today about this article. Now, he says, Miami Dolphins must consider Will Campbell and, yes, Shedeur Sanders if they slide. There are a lot of fully formed opinions about what the Miami Dolphins should do with the 13th pick in the NFL draft. BPA, best available offensive lineman, best available guard. The cries are loud and absolute when, of course, there's nothing at all certain and absolute about the NFL draft, especially this one. This is not a top-heavy draft. There are a lot of players who will be clustered and sorted by teams in different ways. I mean, if there's only 15 first-round grades, seems like it's pretty much top-heavy. But because of that, that 32 to 100, there's a lot of gems in that. So, which leads us to this. When it comes to the 2025 NFL Draft, specifically the Dolphins' 13th pick, the club and, yes, the media and fans must be prepared for the unexpected. The Dolphins may very well be staring at a player or two who, as we say, slid the way Laramie Tunsil famously slid to Miami at pick 13. The Dolphins had done their homework on Tunsil, even though few, if any, thought there was any chance a franchise left tackle could actually be available there. As we know, the selection paid off. This is where we tell you the Dolphins have and will continue to do their homework on some players few, if any, think will be available at 13 this year. So yes, the Miami Dolphins have and will do homework on tackle. Yeah, of course they will. And Shedeur, of course. This is not breaking news report. That's just common sense. It's how thorough teams operate at this time of year. That said, if Campbell and or Sanders are somehow on the board for Miami at 13, they must seriously consider it. Campbell's problem, allegedly, is he has short arms. That's not allegedly, bro. 32 and 5/8 inches isn't alleged. That's a fact. Send those short arms to South Beach, as they say, even though we know South Beach can be an hour or more away from Miami Gardens. That's another column. Campbell can probably be a very good NFL tackle, but it's also very possible he could be an all-pro guard, which is what I've said for the Dolphins for many years. Will Campbell slide would be ideal for the Dolphins. If teams are scared away by Campbell's arms, come on down. We think Mike McDaniel, Chris Greer, and Tua Tagovailoa would welcome Campbell with, Campbell is an SEC-tested 6'6", 319-pound thumper with excellent athletic traits. Remember, he's a very good athlete. His Raz he's a good athlete. The Dolphins can only hope Campbell and or Armand Membo of Missouri is on the board at 13. I don't think Membo's getting out. Kelvin Banks would be another player of worthy consideration. I agree with that. These are the three players I've named. Thank you. That brings us to the quarterback. Some will cringe or flinch or rebel at the notion that anyone should be selected by the Dolphins at 13 who throws a football for the living. We get it plenty. Has been invested in Tua Tagovailoa, is very good when healthy. That is not a mandate on Tagovailoa's ceiling or future. To be clear, it would seem highly unlikely the Dolphins would use a 13th pick on a quarterback while facing so many other needs. Okay, that said, no position is more important than quarterback. And the Dolphins do have a total of 10 draft picks. And there is nothing more valuable than a talented quarterback on a rookie contract. Zach Wilson is under contract for only one season. If the Falcons can sign Kirk Cousins to a $180 million contract and then draft Michael Penix with the 8th pick less than 2 months later, well, anything can happen. Selecting Sanders with the 13th pick would put pressure on Tua Tagovailoa, but so what? Tagovailoa is about to begin his 6th season in Miami, so the pressure of 0 playoff wins weighs heavily anyways. On the one hand, it could be argued Greer and McDaniel must win a playoff game this year, or they must know there's a very chance they'll be replaced. The Dolphins have said they're open to selecting a quarterback in the draft, but Sanders, in all likelihood, would not be a pick designed to help in 2025. It could conversely be argued selecting Sanders would actually give those two a longer leash, which is the argument that I've made. It's hard to say how owner Stephen Ross would view that bold selection. It probably won't matter. Some quarterback-needy team, and there are plenty, is far more likely to select Sanders before Miami's on the clock. Quarterbacks are too valuable. The knock on Sanders is he's too confident and thus may slide. That's not the knock. Sanders isn't the perfect quarterback prospect, but scouts say his touch, accuracy, and anticipation make him the perfect fit for any offense based on timing and ball placement. And it's unlikely to matter, but the Dolphins should and surely would be prepared in any case. So, yes, I've said this before. Those are the strength of his game. 110%. Timing, anticipation, the touch, it gets a little spotty the deeper you go, but but he's not elite at them. He's good at them. They're not superpower. Those three things are superpowers with Tua. They are not superpowers with Shedeur Sanders, right? Shedeur Sanders has zero feel for the pocket and awareness. Like, it's bad. Well, I don't want to say zero, but it's not good. Right? That's why what should be 4-yard sacks turn into like 10, 12, 16-yard sacks. This guy drops straight back like it's Madden, doesn't play side to side, hash to hash in the pocket. He just, I have a second round grade on him. So I wouldn't take him on at 13 based on the film, based on the prospect he is. That's just my opinion. Now, here's something else I will say. All right. Now, I know we just saw a mock draft where, we had Jackson Dart going 9. So let me ask you this. If Sanders is falling, Dart is probably falling. All right. I want to legitimately know you. What do you want? Do you want Shedeur Sanders, who's not a good athlete? Sure, he throws with timing and anticipation, but it's not to the level that Tua does. Or, I don't know, do you want a guy who's coming out from under pro coaching in Lane Kiffin, who has crazy traits, who has a far more live arm? Because Sanders is going to come into the league and have one of the weakest. He has a weaker arm than Tua. He's going to come in and have one of the weakest arm in the NFL probably. All right. Oh, unless Quinn Ewers is a starter. But would you rather that, or would you rather something like this at 13? Okay. This, what are we talking about here? This isn't even a discussion, baby. Sanders can't make this throw. Look at that throw. On the move. Come on, man. If you were going to take a quarterback at 13, you bet on that. You don't bet on Shedeur Sanders. I'm sorry. You just don't. You bet on that. Because guess what? You're talking about a guy who, the post-snap processing needs to continue to get better. But the pre-snap processing from what the system he was in is pretty good. So I'm going to say this. No to a quarterback at 13, but if you are somehow, some way going to gamble on a quarterback at 13, Jackson Dart is the guy you take, not Shedeur Sanders. And guess what? Jackson Dart would probably come out, to Brian's point, and beat out Zach Wilson in camp. But again, I wouldn't take a quarterback at 13. No. But if you're going to roll the dice, roll it on Jackson Dart, not Shedeur Sanders. But let me stress again, I ain't taking a quarterback at 13. Give me Will Johnson. Give me Kenneth Grant. Give me Campbell or Membo. Hell, give me Kelvin Banks. So many ways I'd rather go than quarterback at 13. Now, if Jackson Dart or Shedeur Sanders were on the board at 48, let's have the discussion. But me and you all know they're not going to be. That's why I've been saying on day 3, I want Kyle McCord. That's who I want. If you want a guy with timing, anticipation, and touch to his game, go get Kyle McCord. Because you won't have to spend a top 15 pick, and you could probably get him on day 3. So, I'm going Kyle McCord. Guys, smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. There will be no finish line tomorrow. Richmond Webb has previous obligations. We'll be back next week. Thursday, I'll be live with Neil. Saturday, I'm aiming to drop my first big board of the season, and it'll be defensive tackle. If there is something worth going live, well, I have a show idea. I might be live tomorrow. We'll play it by ear. But until then, smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. I appreciate each and every one of you. Over 300 of you in the room. Do me the favor, smash that like button. I'll see you on the next one. You don't know what time it is. Fins up all day, every day.